My name is Rebecca. It's been a few months since the whole ordeal ended, but sometimes, late at night, I still find myself thinking about that therapy room. The soft lighting, the calm face of Dr. Thompson, and most of all, the sound of his laughter as he told me, without a care in the world, that he didn't actually want to be with me. I was 29 at the time, and I'd been with Jake for 4 years. We got engaged 8 months ago, and our life seemed settled. We lived in a cozy apartment in the city, and everything felt predictable, but in a safe way. Or so I thought. It was Jake's idea to go to couples therapy. I had no idea that it would be the end of our relationship. I hadn't been complaining, I hadn't threatened to leave, and I certainly hadn't sensed any disaster on the horizon. He said he felt disconnected and wanted to fix things before the wedding. I agreed because when someone you love says they're struggling, you show up. You don't argue, you don't defend yourself, you just show up. So, on a Thursday evening in early March, I found myself sitting in a softly lit office across from Dr. Thompson, a wise woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a notepad she barely used. She asked the usual questions. How long had we been together? Why did we get engaged? What brought us here? Jake went first. He talked about the routine, about losing the spark, and about feeling like we'd become roommates rather than partners. I nodded, taking mental notes, thinking, okay, we can work on this. Then Dr. Thompson asked him to be more specific. What do you mean by routine? He shifted in his seat, gave an awkward smile, and said, well, Rebecca is very predictable. She wakes up early, goes to work, comes home, cooks the same meals, watches the same shows, and wears the same clothes. Everything is so safe. My jaw tightened, but I stayed quiet. Dr. Thompson nodded and asked, and how does that make you feel? He exhaled, as if he'd been waiting for permission to speak his mind. I feel like I'm settling, he said, and then he laughed. It was a small, nervous laugh, almost playful. I mean, she's a great person, reliable and stable, the kind of woman your mom would love, but she's kind of plain. I felt a rush of heat behind my eyes, but I still didn't say a word. He continued, still smiling. I think the main reason I stayed with her is because being single at my age is depressing. The words hit me like a ton of bricks. He kept laughing, as if he expected me to agree, as if this was just normal couples therapy honesty. Dr. Thompson didn't laugh. She turned to me and asked, Rebecca, how are you feeling hearing this? I looked at Jake. He was still smiling, that smile that said he genuinely didn't understand what he'd just destroyed. I think this session just fixed everything for me, I said calmly. His smile dropped. What? What do you mean? I took a deep breath. You just told me you don't actually want to be with me. You're with me because you're afraid of being alone. That's not a relationship, that's a placeholder. He reached for my hand, but I pulled it back. You're overreacting, he said. I was just being honest. I nodded. You were, and I appreciate it because now I know exactly what I need to do. Dr. Thompson tried to intervene, suggesting we explore the issue further and reframe our perspectives. I shook my head. I'm not interested in convincing someone to want me. I'm not interested in being the safe option someone settles for. When the session ended, I stood up, thanked Dr. Thompson, and walked out of the office. I didn't look back. The parking lot was almost empty, and the sun had already set, leaving a flat gray-blue light that made everything feel unfinished. I walked faster than I intended, my keys clenched in my fist, and my chest tight, as if something was lodged between my ribs. Rebecca, wait. Jake called after me. I didn't turn around. Rebecca, please. His footsteps hurried to catch up with me. I stopped beside my car and pressed the unlock button just to hear the click, a small reminder that I still had control over something. I didn't mean it like that, he said quickly. You know that, right? I looked at him then. Really looked. His face was flushed, and his eyes were darting around, already trying to patch up the damage. Not because he understood what he'd done, but because he could feel the consequences coming. Then how did you mean it? I asked. He ran a hand through his hair. I was just being honest. Therapy is about honesty. You can't punish me for that. I'm not punishing you, I said. I'm listening to you. That's not fair, he snapped. You're twisting my words. You said you stayed because being single at your age is depressing, and you laughed while you said it. There was a moment of silence. I didn't think you'd take it so personally, he muttered. That was the last straw. I'm engaged to you, I said. How could I not take that personally? He reached for me again, but I stepped back. Rebecca, come on. We've built a life together for 4 years. You're really going to throw that away over one badly phrased comment? You didn't say it badly, I replied. You said it honestly. He opened his mouth, then closed it. That split-second hesitation said more than anything else. I need space, I said, getting into my car. Don't follow me. And I drove away before he could say anything else. I went to my friend Lily's place. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and didn't ask any questions. She just stepped aside and pulled me into a tight hug that knocked the breath out of me. We sat on her couch, and I told her everything. The therapy session, the laughter, the words that kept echoing in my head. That's not honesty, that's contempt, Lily said when I finished. He thinks I'm overreacting, I whispered. Of course he does, she replied. People always minimize the damage when they're the ones holding the knife. I didn't sleep that night. My phone buzzed constantly with missed calls and messages. Please call me. You're being unreasonable. We need to talk this through. I turned it off around midnight. The next morning, I went back to the apartment while Jake was at work. As I walked through the rooms, I suddenly noticed all the things I'd stopped seeing. His shoes by the door, his coffee mug in the sink, the jacket he always draped over the chair instead of hanging it up. I packed his things quietly. Clothes, toiletries, the stupid decorative pillows he'd insisted on. I folded everything neatly into boxes and suitcases. When I was done, I stood in the living room and looked around. It already felt different. I called Jake. Jake, he answered immediately. Thank God. Your things are packed. You can come get them tonight, or I can drop them off at your sister's. Your choice. There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. You're serious? I've never been more serious, I said. This is insane. Over one comment, he said. It wasn't one comment, I replied. It was the truth. You don't mean that, he said, his voice cracking. I love you. Then why did you hesitate when I asked if you thought I was boring? I asked softly. There was a long silence. Please, can we talk in person? He finally said. Against my better judgment, I agreed. He arrived an hour later, his eyes red and his shoulders slumped. We sat across from each other, me on the couch and him in the chair, with the boxes stacked by the door between us, a silent barrier. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't mean any of it. You did, I said. You just didn't expect me to hear it. He wiped his eyes. Everyone has doubts. That doesn't mean they don't love their partner. There's a difference between having doubts and staying with someone because you're afraid to be alone, I replied. You're stable. That's a good thing. That's marriage material, he insisted. I don't want to be someone's material, I said. I want to be wanted. He opened his mouth to argue, then stopped. What about the wedding? The deposits? I'll eat the cost. Consider it tuition, I said. For what? For learning this before it was legally binding. He left that afternoon. 2 trips in a borrowed SUV, and there was no goodbye. Just the sound of the door closing behind the last box. The first few days after he left were eerily quiet. It wasn't a peaceful quiet, it was the kind that rings in your ears because your brain keeps expecting familiar noises that never come. His keys hitting the bowl by the door, his voice from the bathroom, the low hum of his presence that had filled the apartment for years. Now, there was just me. I canceled the wedding on a Tuesday morning. I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee that went cold as I stared at my laptop screen. Vendor after vendor responded with polite condolences and a sharp reminder that most deposits were non-refundable. I closed the tab without checking the total. Some losses don't need to be itemized. I sent a short, neutral, and vague message to our families and friends. We've decided to go our separate ways and won't be moving forward with the wedding. Thank you for respecting our privacy. I assumed Jake would do the same, but that was my mistake. 3 days later, Lily called me. Have you checked his social media? No, I said. Why would I? Because he's being loud, and not in a good way, she said carefully. I checked. There were post after post, thinly veiled and full of implications. Quotes about emotional maturity, stories about how some people can't handle honesty, and a long caption about men who fear self-reflection and women who carry emotional labor alone. He never mentioned my name, but he didn't have to. Comments flooded in, full of sympathy, praise, and validation. I closed the app and set my phone face down. I'm not responding, I told Lily. Anyone who knows me knows the truth. She hesitated. There's more. I sighed. Of course there is. His sister, Sarah, called me. She's trying to get your number, she said. I froze. Which sister? Sarah, the older one. I've always liked her. She's practical, blunt, and doesn't play the relationship games her brother does. I agreed to call her back. Rebecca, Sarah said as soon as I answered. I'm so sorry to do this, but I need to tell you something. My stomach tightened. He's been staying with me, and he's been telling everyone you overreacted, that you threw away 4 years over nothing, she continued. I exhaled slowly. That tracks. But I was there the night you left therapy. I heard him on the phone with his friend, Laura. He was laughing, Rebecca. He told her how he'd finally been honest about you being boring and how you freaked out. He said he'd give you a few days to calm down, and then you'd come crawling back. The room seemed to tilt. He said that? Yes, she said. And when Laura asked if he even wanted you back, he said, not really. But the wedding's already planned, and I'm not starting over at my age. I sat down hard on the couch. I told him that was cruel. We fought about it. He accused me of betraying him, but Rebecca, you did the right thing, Sarah said. Tears burned behind my eyes, not from surprise, but from confirmation. Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle. You deserve to know. You deserve someone who's excited to choose you, not someone checking boxes, she replied. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time. Vindication is a strange thing. It doesn't feel like victory, it feels like grief with proof. 2 weeks later, Jake showed up at my apartment. I'd just come back from the gym, my hair damp with sweat, wearing leggings, and without any emotional armor. He was sitting on the front steps, looking like a part of a life I'd already left behind. We need to talk, he said. I stared at him, at the man who'd laughed about me being boring and who'd assumed I'd crawl back. What's left to say? I've been thinking about what I said and how I hurt you, he said, standing up quickly. I was wrong. I know I was defensive, but I think we can work through this. I'm seeing Dr. Thompson individually now. She thinks we should try couples therapy again with a better mindset. I laughed, not cruelly, but incredulously. My headspace is fine. My standards just changed. His face tightened. Sarah told me what you said after therapy, about waiting for me to come crawling back and about not actually wanting me. Color drained from his face. She had no right to tell you that. So, you did say it. What context makes that okay? I asked. He didn't answer. In that silence, I finally saw the pattern clearly. He stood there in front of me, hands in his jacket pockets, shoulders slightly hunched, like a man waiting for mercy without taking any accountability. I was hurt. I was venting. People say things they don't mean when they're hurt, he finally said. You seem to say a lot of things you don't mean. How am I supposed to know which version of you is real? I replied. The one who loves you, he said quickly. I held his gaze. The version of you that loves me wouldn't have said any of those things. Not in therapy, not to your friend. Not ever. His jaw tightened. You're being unfair. No, I said calmly. I'm being accurate. He took a step closer. I didn't move, but I didn't step back either. I was done shrinking. For years doesn't just disappear. You can't erase that because of one bad moment, he said. It wasn't one moment. It was a pattern I finally stopped explaining away, I replied. He exhaled sharply. So, that's it. You're just done. Yes, I said. The word felt solid, final, like a door closing without slamming. You're making a mistake. Do you know how hard it is to find someone stable at our age? Someone compatible? He said, his voice hardening. I don't want to be someone you settle for. I want to be someone you're excited about, I said. That's unrealistic. Life isn't a rom-com, he snapped. I'm not asking for fireworks. I'm asking for respect, I replied. He looked at me then, really looked. And for a split second, I saw a flash of panic in his eyes. You'll regret this. You'll see. Maybe, I said. But I'd rather regret leaving than regret staying. I turned towards the building entrance. Rebecca, he called after me. I made a mistake. I paused, my hand on the door. One mistake? Everyone makes mistakes. I didn't turn around. It wasn't one mistake. It was 4 years of you tolerating me instead of choosing me. I went inside and closed the door. This time, I didn't listen for his footsteps leaving. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Not because I wasn't sad, but because I wasn't confused anymore. The smear campaign faded slowly. His posts became less pointed, then sporadic, and finally non-existent. Sarah told me he'd started dating again, someone spontaneous and exciting. I wished him well. Honestly, excitement doesn't fix emptiness, it just distracts from it. I started doing small things differently. I said yes to invitations I'd previously declined because Jake didn't feel like going. I took a weekend trip with Lily, signed up for a hiking group on a whim, and picked up my guitar again, the one I'd stopped playing because Jake had once joked that it was a phase. Turns out it wasn't. Dr. Thompson emailed me around that time and asked if I'd consider a few individual sessions. I agreed. In our first meeting, she said something that hit me hard. What happened in that session was painful, but it also gave you information you needed. He told you who he was, and you believed him. I keep wondering if I overreacted, I admitted. You didn't. You chose self-respect, she said. 2 months later, my life felt lighter. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. I went on a few dates, nothing serious, no pressure. There was a man, Daniel, who asked me questions and waited for the answers, who laughed at my jokes, and who didn't make me feel like I was auditioning for permanence. We took it slow. I wasn't in a rush to be chosen anymore. One of our mutual friends, Tom, asked me one night if I ever regretted how everything ended. No, I said. I regret not seeing it sooner. Some people don't cheat. They just stay for the wrong reasons. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is listen when someone tells you, directly or not, that they don't want you. I'm 29 now. I have time, I have self-respect, and I have the rest of my life ahead of me, free from being anyone's backup plan. 2 months after everything ended, the apartment finally felt like mine again. Not because it looked different, most of the furniture was the same. But the air had changed. There was no more tension, no more quiet calculation about his mood when he got home, no more mental editing of myself to make things smoother. Just space. And in that space, I started to hear myself again. One Sunday morning, I reorganized.